This tutorial is to show you a few tips on the Arkansas Snowflake block. So this is a an English paper piecing block. This is one that is almost complete. I'm going to put it this direction. And you'll see that there are 4 of these units that are English paper pieced. In your kit, you should have 16 of these little diamond papers. I glue my I glue my fabric seam allowances over with glue. And if you want to get those out, the best way is to just run a seam ripper around like this and loosen it away from the paper. And then you're going to reach in and just pull that paper out. And then you can repress any seams that seem to be a little bit distorted. And then I glue my block onto my background. So let's talk about the background first. So I hope that you can see that this has a pressing mark right there and a pressing mark right here. You're going to make a cross across your background. So all I did to do that was I folded it and pressed it, and then I made these marks right here so that I could then match up those marks so that it was a true cross across there. You're going to foundation paper piece these together. You sew 2 together, 2 together, and then sew down that center seam. When you're up here, these are big tails that are on here. You're going to leave those big tails until you're ready to applique them. So you can see that this, after you mark the X, then you're going to get an 8.5 inch square ruler. And I know there's going to be a glare on here. I apologize. My light makes it so that I can't film without my light, and my light really creates a glare, but I'm sorry about that. Anyway, I'm going to show you this on the mat because you can see that an 8.5 inch square has a 4 1/4 cross going through it. That cross is going to line up right on those marks, and these marks out here help me to get that lined up so that in case you can't see your pressing lines really clearly, that you can just line it up this way. So anyway, this is the easiest way to mark that 8.5 inch square. This is where we're going to trim afterwards, and you just want that pressing mark to be on the 4 1/4. If you don't have a square ruler, you can use any kind of a ruler. Just mark it at 4 1/4 from the pressing line out, pressing line out, pressing line out, and pressing line out. Okay, so we've got our 8.5 inch square marked. We've got our crosses made, our pressing crosses, and I've got this last one ready to applique. So I always glue down my foundation paper piecing, and the way mine were pressed, it ended up that from my center to my point is somewhere between like 1 3/4, 1 7/8 ish. And so since this is my last one, I'm going to definitely match up these 2 points. I'm going to just glue that in place just a little bit. And I'm not doing anything with those dog ears yet. And I'm not going to touch my points to each other. It gives the impression that they're pointing even though there's about 1/8 of an inch in between them. And that's okay. You can make them touch if you want. There's no right and wrong. This will float a little bit inside that background. Sometimes I'll double check this just to kind of make sure it's kind of in that 1 3/4 inch range. I'll check it here and here as I'm gluing just to make sure it looks nice and straight. Okay, now if you'll press that while the glue is wet, it will help hold it in place better. All right, so when you're going to applique down the points, I usually would start right here, but to just save time, because I'm videoing, I'm gonna start just a little bit right here. I hope you can see my hands well. So you're just going to do the applique stitch, and you're going to go right up to the point, and this is an awfully skinny point, but you can do it. So I'm going to come out on the exact point, and I'm going to turn so that I can tug directly away and straight out from that point. And then I'm going to do another little stitch. And I'm going to pull it away. If I was to pull it this way, my point would curve this way. If I was to pull it this way, my point will curve that way. So just pull it straight out. Now this is a lot of fabric to squish inside that little point. Don't ever trim this way, because that leaves too small of an area right there. But you can trim away this way, because this is just seam allowance. So I can trim, I can kind of fold this back, and I can trim, and usually it's just one little layer. So that reduces my point. Then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to fold that down. And I didn't get the whole thing tucked in, but I got most of it. And I'm going to do one more little stitch. I'm going to pull away from that point, and then I'm going to tuck the rest of this under. And you just really have to cram it in to that spot. All right, so once that's crammed in, then I can take another little itty bitty stitch. I'm going to come up in the background, and then I'm going to loop over and get a hold of just the star point. And I want my fabric to come out this way, and then I'm going to tuck my next bit of stuff inside and take another little stitch. And that is how you can do those points. They are going to be thick. When I feel this right here, it's thick and wadded up in there. But that's the best way to do that. And I might have gotten a little bit of I might have trimmed that a little small. So trim yours a little bit bigger than what I did on that last one, especially if you're a beginner, because you definitely don't want to trim those too short. All right, so we'll pretend that that's all stitched. And when it's all done, you're going to lay it right side down on an ironing board. You're going to press it really well from the back, and then you're going to turn it over, and you're going to trim that somewhere pretty close to that drawn square that you have on there. Trim it to 8.5 inches. And that is called the Arkansas Snowflake.